You're not very bright, are you? I like that in a man. Good evening, everyone. This is Stone Gasman live from New York City. And tonight we're going to be doing an audio commentary on writer-director Lawrence Kasdan's debut movie, Body Heat, starring William Hurt and Kathleen Turner and Ted Danson, and also in a small but very memorable role, Mickey Rourke, in what was only his second or third movie. So this is I think a classic of the neo noir genre, and I think a lot of other people think so as well. I think this has become a favorite in many people's eyes when it comes to films of the '80s, and especially Kathleen Turner movies and William Hurt movies. I mean, this is very much up there. I mean, it's got a 98% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and I think that it's still very well remembered from those that remember seeing it back in the '80s as well as now. But if you've never seen it before, I'm telling you all right now, you are in for a treat tonight. You're in for an absolute treat with Body Heat. I think you're all going to really, really enjoy this. So before we get started, I am paused on the Lad Company tree logo for Body Heat on my Blu-ray. If you're watching it streaming, it should be the same thing. There's no Warner Brothers logo. Technically, there's no Warner Brothers logo. It's just the Lad Company tree logo, and I have it paused there, ready to go. Now, just a few things I want to mention before we get started here. In the past 2 weeks, we have done commentaries for Lad Company releases, specifically the movies that came out in the early 1980s from the company, produced by Alan Ladd Jr. and Gareth Wigan, who were both at 20th Century Fox. And we started out with Chariots of Fire. We did that a couple weeks ago. And last week, we managed to knock out a double feature with Looker and Outland. And Looker and Outland were interesting because they were both written and directed by one man each. Looker was done by Michael Crichton, best known as the author of Jurassic Park. And Outland was written and directed by Peter Hyams, who later gave us 2010, The Year We Made Contact, and the Jean-Claude Van Damme vehicles, Sudden Death and Time Cop, which are definite classics of the 90s action genre. So Alan Ladd Jr. and his company, the Ladd Company, they really took risks with young up and coming writer and directors, and in this case, they released what, in my opinion, is the best film of 1981 for the company. I mean, I love Chariots of Fire. I still would have voted for Raiders of the Lost Ark, which of course Lawrence Kasdan wrote the screenplay for Raiders of the Lost Ark. And we'll talk about the journey that Lawrence Kasdan took into getting to Body Heat when we start the commentary. But yeah, I mean, those four films that the Ladd Company put out in 1981 were Chariots of Fire, Looker, and sorry, hold on one second. Have them right here. But yeah, Chariots of Fire, which won Best Picture. Outland and Looker. The Michael Crichton film isn't that great, although I did the commentary for it you can listen to it there, as well as the one for Outland, which I really did like, even though I had never seen it before. But now we are doing Body Heat, which, like I said, in my opinion, even above Chariots of Fire and Outland, I do think that Body Heat is the best film that the Ladd Company put out that year in 1981. And of course, most of the credit has to go to Lawrence Kasdan, writer and director, and we'll talk about his journey here in a minute. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. We are paused at the Ladd Company logo for Body Heat, and we will start on 3, 2, 1, and play. And here is of course, the wonderful Ladd Company logo with the John Williams score punctuated underneath. Yes, that is in fact the same John Williams that scored Star Wars, Superman, and Born on the 4th of July, and many other magnificent movies through Warner Brothers. Yeah, Lad Company had its own offices at Warner Brothers. And just after a few years, Warner Brothers kind of decided, you know what? We don't want to like distribute movies through a subsidiary like Lad Company anymore. But yeah, Body Heat. Oh yeah. So we open up with this wonderful John Barry score. John Barry, of course, had scored many of the James Bond pictures, but right before this, he had actually just come off of the Disney movie The Black Hole, which has an amazing, haunting score, as well as Somewhere in Time, which is this really wonderful time travel romance movie with Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour, which if you've never seen before, highly recommend that, as John Barry contributes one of the most romantic scores in the history of movies. An absolute gem of a movie. Absolutely. Music composed and conducted by John Barry. John Barry's score is definitely one of the highlights of this movie, among many, many, many other highlights. Now, as most people are aware when it comes to Body Heat, that this was inspired by the film noirs of the 1940s, specifically Double Indemnity, which was directed by Billy Wilder in 1944. I just watched a Double Indemnity again for the first time in many, many years the night before. It was great returning to it. I mean, it's got Fred McMurray, and basically he's seduced by Barbara Stanwyck with bumping off her husband for a double indemnity in his insurance. So very much inspired by those type of movies from the 1940s, but based on writings on like David M. Kane, who was a huge mystery writer of the time, as well as Raymond Chandler, who we'll mention a little bit later. But here we have to talk about introductions in terms of the actors. This, of course, is the late William Hurt, sporting a magnificent mustache, which Alan Ladd Jr. objected to. The amazing thing is that Lawrence Kasdan had nothing but praise for Alan Ladd Jr. and is forever grateful for him for giving him the shot in terms of writing and directing his own movie. But you got to remember that right before this, Lawrence Kasdan had written the screenplays for The Empire Strikes Back and Raiders of the Lost Ark, which we'll talk about individually in a minute. But William Hurt, a longtime Hollywood actor, did many, many great films. And I did a commentary last year before he passed on, incidentally, one of my favorite films that he did, which was Children of a Lesser God with Marlee Matlin. And of course, that is the now considered the infamous movie where those two met, and then they had this relationship afterward, which was rather abusive and everything. I've read Marlee Matlin's book. It's pretty harsh and pretty nasty in terms of what William Hurt did to her. However, I don't want to expound upon that because I already did in my Children of a Lesser God audio commentary from last year. So, look, one of my favorite movies. And the thing is that there are William Hurt movies that I just cannot separate myself from, and Body Heat is one of them. I think he is spectacular. He had only done 2 films before Body Heat. The first one being the Ken Russell science fiction movie Altered States, which is actually very good, although I've never felt the need to return to it for some reason. It's a little out there even for me. And he also did a forgotten movie called Eyewitness with Sigourney Weaver earlier in the year in 1981. And here we also have Ted Danson, a pre-Cheers Ted Danson, sporting some extremely nerdy glasses. This is nothing like the character that you know on Cheers. Let that character just go down the sink, okay? Because this guy is nothing like the head bartender in Cheers. In fact, this was the first thing I ever saw Ted Danson in. to be perfectly honest. And he and William Hurt are enjoying some lunch here and back at a bar where you could actually smoke cigarettes and everything. Now, there's a lot of smoking in this movie. I mean, one of the, of course, the aspects of those 1940 noirs was that it seemed like every character just needed to have a cigarette. Just like, I mean, well, it doesn't matter what situation they were in. Like, I mean, they had to have a cigarette right then and there, and it really spoke to what an addiction it was. And of course, in the 1950s, you know, the tobacco companies would pay off doctors to promote cigarettes to their patients. It's not a joke. I mean, you know, my doctor recommends Camel cigarettes. But in the 1980s, it was around this time, just in a few years, when they would start to ban smoking in public places and everything. I mean, I remember watching all these 1980s movies and thinking, wow, there was a lot less smoking at the end of the decade than there was at the beginning of the decade. I mean, you know, in movies like Midnight Run, you can see Robert De Niro actually smoking on planes. Yeah, that's how much people smoked back then. Just to say hi to some people in the chat, we got Joe Bob Tarheel. Hey, Stone, I've never seen this movie. Well, like I said, you are in for a treat. You are in for an absolute treat tonight. This is one of the all-time greats, if you ask me. I mean, absolutely. We're only 7 minutes in, and we're about to meet the leading lady of the piece. But before I get to her, Sean McManus, good evening, Stone. Love this movie and the score by John Barry. One of my favorite scores, yes. Barry's score is definitely one of his absolute best. I adore every moment in it. And I especially love halfway through when it begins to ramp up as the suspense ramps up as well. And we also have Dying Breed. Hello, Stone. Hello to you, sir. And Rob Gasper. Hello there, Stone. Planet CHH. Hey now, Stone. Hey, what's up, my man? Glad you could join us tonight. Body Heat is one of those movies that I think needs to be seen by anybody that loves film as an art form. It really it transcends, I think, its own genre, the neo-noir genre that it most famously kicked off in the 1980s. And here we have the most sultry of women that has ever graced the screen, Kathleen Turner. Hard to believe this was her first movie. I mean, it's really, I mean, even in retrospect, it's insane that she got this starring role practically in what was essentially a low budget movie. I mean, this movie was only made for about $7 million by the Ladd Company. But that's all Lawrence Kasdan needed. I mean, after writing Empire Strikes Back and Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know, he had the clout. He now had the clout to make whatever the hell he wanted. And he wanted to make Body Heat with this. Oh, my God. Kathleen Turner is stunning. You know, I mean, that's the thing is that I tell people all the time, if you're going to watch this movie, make sure you're hydrated. And that's not a joke. Okay, okay. I'm really not joking when I say that. You really need to be hydrated for a movie like Body Heat. It's something that this came out in the dog days of August of 1981, the steamy dog days of August. But the irony is, the great irony being that they shot in Florida, and they were that was apparently where they apparently were dealing with their coldest winter. They shot this in the winter months in Florida, and for some reason in that particular summer in Florida, it was like colder than they've ever seen it before. It was an extremely cold winter. So these scenes were, of course, they're pretending to be, you know, scorched by the heat and sweating and everything. Oh no, they were they were freezing. It's hard to believe that, isn't it? But I mean, think of it also in another way, because if you remember the horror movie Cujo with Dee Wallace and Danny Pintaro, where they're supposed to be dying of dehydration in this broken down car with this rabid Saint Bernard outside ready to attack them. I mean, they were supposed to be like, seriously, pun intended, sweltering in the dog days of August. But no, they were filming in freezing temperatures. And it's a testament to the actors, all of these actors, that they sell it. They actually sell this as being like steamy humidity, just, as hot, as unbearably hot as you can imagine. I mean, look, I love and respect all my friends who live and come from Florida. But I could never live there. I mean, I'd rather live in Arizona where I could deal with the dry heat and not just like the death humidity of Florida. And in reality, this film was originally not supposed to be set in Florida. It was supposed to be set and shot in New Jersey. But there was a writer's strike that happened in 1980. And so they had to basically change locations, and they found this place down in Florida. So this place called Lakewood, where they could shoot body heat and everything. And William Hurt, of course, plays this lawyer. I mean, his brain's kind of run at half speed. And he's not really, he doesn't really think about before he gets into things and everything. He's just like sleeping with random women, and is just trying to deal with the damn heat, whatever. But when he sees Kathleen Turner, he makes it his mission to get with Kathleen Turner by hell or high water and meet with her. So he drives out to an area of Florida called Pine Haven, where apparently he knows where the only place in town is where you can get a drink, get some cocktails. And he goes there hoping to see and meet Maddie, played by Kathleen Turner. And wouldn't you know, she is in fact sitting right there at the bar. Only in the movies. Only in the movies, ladies and gentlemen. So so what is the genesis of all this? What is the story behind Body Heat? Because, well, Lawrence Kasdan was born in Miami Beach, grew up in West Virginia, and he graduated from high school in 1966. And like many people, he dreamed about becoming a writer. And he was actually working nights chopping meat in a grocery store when he got out of high school, and he just sent some of his writings to some contests. He won some awards, and so he realized that he could get a living by just writing whatever he wanted. But ultimately he wanted to become a director. He thought, wow, I mean, he had seen Lawrence of Arabia in 1963 on the big screen, and of course he grew up loving the film noirs of the 1940s, specifically Out of the Past is a genuine favorite, and the Asphalt Jungle, many others, and of course Double Indemnity, which of course is the famous Billy Wilder film. Just real quick about Double Indemnity before I continue about Lawrence Kasdan. One thing about Double Indemnity, because now it's considered one of the great classics of American cinema, with Frederick Murray and Barbara Stanwyck, is that it was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, and infamously it won none. Now, the film that actually won all those awards was a film called Going My Way, starring Bing Crosby, which came from the same studio. And because of, well, studio politics, I mean, if you had a film through the studio, you were expected to support that movie. Well, Going My Way, which is a film that's rarely talked about these days. I mean, I think it finally got a Blu-ray recently, like one of the last Best Picture winners to finally get a Blu-ray. And it's not necessarily a bad movie, but the thing is, you watch it next to Double Indemnity, and I'm sorry, in my opinion, there's just no contest. I mean, Going My Way was a feel-good movie that was released in the darkest days of World War II. Double Indemnity was not a movie that people wanted to see during those days. I mean, it just wasn't. And Going My Way ended up winning every single Oscar, while Double Indemnity, with 7 nominations, won nothing. And so, infamously, at the Academy Awards ceremony, when Leo McCarey, the director of Love Affair and eventually Going My Way, when he found out that he had won Best Director, he had reportedly jumped out of his seat. He was so happy and excited and joyful, started running down the aisle. Billy Wilder stuck his leg out and tripped him. I don't know what that says about Billy Wilder, but look, and reportedly after the ceremony, obviously Billy Wilder was like incensed that Double Indemnity did not win a single damn award. He yelled at everybody from his limousine that, well, what does the Academy know anyway? I mean, they gave Louise Reiner a Best Actress twice. And for those of you who don't know, Louise Rayner, I think, excuse me, she had won a couple of Best Actress awards for, I believe, The Great Ziegfeld and The Good Earth. And she had like come from nowhere. I mean, she had done stage work in Europe and everything, but she sort of became like a punchline for like, Academy Awards that didn't mean anything or whatever, because in Great Ziegfeld, she's only in it for like maybe 45 minutes in a 3-hour movie. And so there were a lot of people that were questioning, like, why the hell did they give her the award? And ironically enough, Kathleen Turner would suffer the same fate. I'll get to that story pretty soon. But, oh, man. that scene of Kathleen Turner putting out the cigarette right next to her car, that is just absolute classic right there. Absolute classic. Another great thing about the film is the cinematography by Richard M.H. Klein, who also did The Fury by Brian De Palma. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So Lawrence Kasdan loved those movies, and he started writing screenplays in the 1970s. And eventually, his first screenplay that sold was eventually became known as The Bodyguard. Now, The Bodyguard that we know of, which is the movie with Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner, Lawrence Kasdan indeed wrote the screenplay for that, although he did not direct it. What happened is that initially he had written The Bodyguard for Steve McQueen, who he was a massive fan of. But Steve McQueen had passed away in 1980, and they spent like 20 years trying to rework The Bodyguard over and over again until it finally saw the light of day in 1994. But even Kasdan admits that the movie is, he considers that the worst of his career that he's ever been associated with, despite the fact that it got the most money of most of the other films that he's written or directed, except for Raiders. And, well, actually, it made more than Raiders. It didn't make as much as Empire Strikes Back, but it made more than Raiders of the Lost Ark. But he wrote The Bodyguard, and then he wrote a script called Continental Divide, which was later filmed with Blair Brown and John Belushi from Saturday Night Live, and who was in the Blues Brothers. And this was before he passed away in 1982. But Spielberg loved the script so much that he bought it. And so then he and George and Lawrence Kasdan and George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and Frank Marshall all met one day in a room. And in 20 minutes, they shook hands with Lawrence Kasdan being hired to write Raiders of the Lost Ark, which, of course, is Steven Spielberg's ode to James Bond, with Indiana Jones and his love of the 1930s serials. And Lawrence Kasdan wrote a hell of a script. He wrote a hell of a script for Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, very, very funny, very wicked, very, and it had a sense of humor, which a lot of people did not notice with Body Heat, I think, on initial viewings, is that this movie has a real sense of humor about itself that is just beautifully embedded between the lines of Lawrence Kasdan's script. But after he finished Raiders, George Lucas then hired him to rewrite Empire Strikes Back. It was in the middle of being rewritten because what happened was George Lucas had originally gone to Lee Brackett. And Lee Brackett is a very famous Hollywood screenwriter who, who oddly enough, co-wrote one of my favorite movies of all time and one of the great noirs of the 1940s, which of course is The Big Sleep, starring Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. This, to me, with all due respect to Double Indemnity and The Maltese Falcon, this is the quintessential film noir, if you ask me. I'm not, and of course, this is coming from somebody that is not confessed not an expert on the genre. I feel like with Shakespeare, that film noir is something that you would have to take an entire college course on it to truly appreciate everything that the genre has to offer. But I have loved the Big Sleep ever since I was, oh my God, 8, 9 years old. I mean, Lauren Bacall is on fire through this entire movie, and every single line of this script is a gem. It's just an absolute gem. I mean, it just, especially the lines that got past the Hays Code, where Lauren Bacall, suggests that it all depends on who's in the saddle, like when you're having sex and everything. Oh, it's just very, very, very steamy stuff. But yeah, Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart made my favorite noir, which was The Big Sleep. And Lee Brackett had co-wrote that with William Faulkner, of all people, the very famous author William Faulkner, directed by Howard Hawks and everything. But when she was working on the first draft of Empire Strikes Back, she was actually dying. She was actually dying literally when she was writing the script. And in fact, when she turned in her draft, it was actually still in that draft where Darth Vader was still not Luke Skywalker's father. In the first Star Wars, Darth Vader is not Luke's father. Okay. I mean, I always kind of liked the fact that he was just some guy. Instead of the whole family connection, even though it generated arguably the most famous family twist or the most famous twist in cinema history. But Lawrence Kasdan, he did not come up with that twist. That was all George Lucas, as a matter of fact. Lawrence Kasdan came in after Lucas had done more rewrites on it after Lee Brackett's death. But it was The Empire Strikes Back in which we first saw Lawrence Kasdan's name on movie screens. And of course, it was the #1 film of 1980 in terms of box office. So, and then Raiders of the Lost Ark came out in July of 1981. And people saw his name again, screenplay by Lawrence Kasdan. And then finally in August, we got Body Heat, which of course is what we're watching right now. So that's the journey that Lawrence Kasdan took in getting Body Heat to the screen. Now, after that, he has worked on many other films, many which he has wrote and directed. Now, I got to confess, despite that three-way explosion of Raiders, Empire, and Body Heat, which is just an amazing trinity of scripts, you could say, to kick off a career in motion pictures. I mean, that is just insane. That is just absolutely insane, if you ask me. Now, before we talk about Lawrence Kasdan's later films, it should be mentioned that, okay, this scene right here is one of the more graphic scenes in the movie when it comes to the sexuality, and it remains pretty damn steamy. Incidentally, my father was, of course, I mean, this movie is, of course, partially about obsession, as many of those noirs were about, and, of course, Hitchcock films like Vertigo and everything. Obsession is very much at the heart of this movie, the dark, beating heart of Body Heat. And my father was literally obsessed with Kathleen Turner to the point where he kept Body Heat under lock and key. So I was not able to see Body Heat for many years. Oh, I saw Raiders a shit ton of times. I saw Empire a shit ton of times, but I never was able to watch Body Heat. Oh, and on top of that, Romancing the Stone, which I have seen probably more than any other movie. I mean, Kathleen Turner is sensational in that, along with Michael Douglas. I did an audio commentary on that actually to kick off the year. You can all go back and listen to that. One of the most amazing factoids about that movie, Romancing the Stone, is the fact that the chemistry was so strong that Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner actually were having a love affair during the production. So, and it shows. It most definitely shows. So, I became a huge Kathleen Turner fan largely because of Romancing the Stone, to be perfectly honest. Excuse me while I take a drink real quick. And this actor that just sat down next to Ted Danson and William Hurt, wanted to talk about him just real quick. This is an actor by the name of J.A. Preston, and he's still with us. He's 89 years old now, and he's best known for portraying the judge in the Rob Reiner movie A Few Good Men. I told myself a number of times, okay, I know that face from somewhere. You know, he's one of those actors that you know you've seen before, and maybe it just doesn't come immediately. It's like, oh, yeah. Well, yeah, J.A. Preston played the judge in A Few Good Men. And he was also Ozzie Cleveland on the NBC primetime series Hill Street Blues. And in other films that he did were Silver Streak, Real Life, the Albert Brooks movie Real Life, which is actually a really funny comedy, Americathon, High Noon Part 2, The Return of Will Kane. That was a TV movie, to be needless to say. Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins, Firebirds, Captain Ron. He played the magistrate in Captain Ron. And he was also a senator in Contact. I'm going to be doing Contact next week, so I'll be sure to point him out when I get to him. But I do remember him from Contact as well. And he also played a general in Air Force One. And also among his television work include Wonder Woman, Little House on the Prairie, Law and Order, Father Dowling Mysteries, Tales from the Crypt, The Jackie Thomas Show, Lois and Clark, Empty Nest, Sequest, Chicago Hope, The Sentinel, and Clueless. So yeah, that's J.A. Preston, who we just missed right there. But we'll come back to him. We'll come back to him eventually. But So what did Lawrence Kasdan do after the success of Body Heat? Well, I mean, Body Heat, came out in August of 1981. Excuse me. Came out during the dog days of August, and it made $24 million on a budget of $7 million, which is very good. I mean, like I said, this was a risk that the Ladd company took, and it paid off. Outland, unfortunately, it didn't pay off because Outland didn't barely broke even. And Looker, which was done by Michael Crichton, that unfortunately just plain bombed. So 1981 was an interesting year for the Ladd company, in that, Outland, while it was an excellent film, it made no money. Looker bombed, and Body Heat actually did very well, but not as well as Chariots of Fire. That was actually the biggest box office hit for the company, although it should be stated that that was a joint partnership with Warner Brothers as opposed to just a sole production venture on the part of the Ladd company. Now, interestingly enough, I mean, with Lawrence Kasdan, he had nothing but great words to say about Alan Ladd Jr. and the company that he worked, the Ladd company, and how he worked with them and everything. Nothing but kind words. Although there was a disagreement, which when Lawrence Kasdan reveals this, it completely blows my mind. But evidently, Alan Ladd Jr., and again, I should remind everybody that Alan Ladd Jr. was, a 20th Century Fox executive who famously gave the green light to George Lucas for Star Wars. Here again, all going back to George Lucas and everything. George Lucas actually came on to Body Heat as an uncredited producer and said, "Look, I got Lawrence Kasdan's back. I mean, if you're worried that he is not going to deliver for you guys, you can bring me in on a fee, and if he goes over budget, you can just use my fee and to take care of the additional costs and everything." This is one of my favorite lines. He just goes up behind her in the gazebo, is like, "Hey, lady, you want to fuck?" And it's like, "Oh no, it's a different woman." It's a completely different woman. Yes, indeed. Now, this, of course, is Kim Zimmer in the role of Maddie's sister, Mary Ann Simpson. No, just passing through. And she was famous on several soap operas, including Guiding Light and One Life to Live, essentially. And she had done on other shows like Designing Women and MacGyver and everything. Didn't do a lot of other movies after this, though, unfortunately. In fact, looking at her filmography, she hasn't done anything else aside from Body Heat. I mean, she's primarily known for Guiding Light, where she actually won a number of daytime soap awards for that. But I don't know most of the movies that you review. However, I do appreciate your passion and knowledge of such movies. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you very much, Dying Breed. I really appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, my whole thing is that I'm very much a champion of the obscure. So if there's a movie out there that doesn't have a commentary for it, I immediately jump at the chance to do a commentary for it because there's no commentary. And a lot of those movies tend to be rather obscure and nobody's heard of. I mean, who would have thought that a movie from 1972 called Napoleon and Samantha would actually exist, with Michael Douglas and Jodie Foster in the movie where she was mauled by a lion and nearly devoured by a lion. I mean, I never knew that movie existed. I'm like, shit, I got to talk about this. So, like I said, I have a very wide range as to what I want to talk about and what I don't want to talk about. But there's something real quick that I wanted to double check here. Yeah, I'm sorry. I said that Marianne Simpson was her sister before. Scratch that. I knew that was wrong. I'm so sorry. Maddie's old high school friend, which she just happens to physically resemble. I don't know where sister came from. I do apologize about that. But no. She's actually an old high school friend. Yes. Yeah, I know. As if I could make this movie any more complicated, I apologize to anybody who is. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Also, bear in mind that I think a general rule with commentaries is that you really shouldn't be watching a movie and listening to a commentary like this for the first time. I mean, you have to have seen Body Heat before because you don't want to spoil it for somebody or get something or get a crucial plot detail wrong like I just did and be like, oh no, you don't want to do that. So I do apologize to everybody about making that mistake, but no, she's actually an old high school friend. Yeah. Mm-hmm. She just happens to look very much like her. But going back to Lawrence Kasdan and the films that he did after Body Heat, I got to confess that there isn't really any other films after he made Body Heat that I think are just as good as this. I still think this is his best work, believe it or not. I am not a fan of The Big Chill. Not to say I think it's bad. I just I dig the soundtrack to it, but that's about it. I mean, it's hard for me to identify with these college buddies getting together, years after they were, years after they went to school together. I just can't really identify with those characters in any way. And it just doesn't work for me as a nostalgia piece or otherwise. because I have no connections to those people or those events and everything. But I mean, not to say it's a, I mean, it was released by Criterion. It still has its fans, and it's still one of Lawrence Kasdan's most popular movies. I just don't have any particular love for it. I mean, not the kind of love I have for Body Heat at any rate. And then after The Big Chill, he did Silverado, which is actually a really good Western. It's got a great cast too, great quartet of stars, and he made that in inspiration of like films like The Magnificent Seven and everything, because he had a love of westerns as much as he did for film noir. And here, Kathleen Turner gives William Hurt a hat that many of those guys in those old detective films of the '40s would wear. Those particular hats, like Humphrey Bogart and everything. Yeah. And I'm sorry if I didn't mention it real quick, but Alan Ladd Jr., his one objection to this movie was, could you shave William Hurt's mustache? The fuck? You can't shave William Hurt's mustache? And his reasoning was, well, it makes him look sleazy. Yeah, he's supposed to be sleazy. Okay, so that was the one complaint that that Lawrence Kasdan had about Alan Ladd Jr. when they were making this at the Ladd Company. And supposedly what happened is that the executive at the Ladd Company kept on badgering Lawrence Kasdan up until shooting. You got to shave that mustache. You got to shave that mustache. And then finally, they just ended up shooting the movie with the mustache. Obviously, they never heard another word from Alan Ladd or again about that. So, look, how can you shoot this movie without a mustache for his character? I mean, no, the mustache is part of the character. That's a good-looking mustache too. Come on. It's obviously never dry, so. Oh, and here we have this very, very steamy scene where, yeah, apparently he had been waiting outside there for a number of hours, and so Kathleen Turner give him a little blowy right then and there, Yeah, why not? But what William Hurt doesn't know is that she had a guest. Her niece. Okay, so at any rate, back to Lawrence Kasdan. So after Silverado, which is actually a really excellent Western from 1985, I'm trying to remember who was in that. Jeff Goldblum and Kevin Costner, and who were the other guys? Oh, Scott Glenn and John Cleese and Brian Dennehy and Danny Glover. Yeah, and Jeff Goldblum. Yeah, great cast. That's a terrific Western, as a matter of fact. And then he made the Accidental Tourist, which reunited him with William Hurt and Kathleen Turner. Really good movie. I Love You to Death was a film that he did not write. He had just directed it, but it's a black comedy with Kevin Kline. And then after that, he did Grand Canyon, which I remember my parents renting in 1991, and I have not seen it since. I think I was a little too young for it, and it's one of those movies where I never felt the need to revisit as an adult for some reason. Maybe I should. I don't know. It's got Steve Martin in it, but it's not a comedy. It's actually a collection of stories, with the Grand Canyon used as like a symbolic location, I guess you could say. And then after Grand Canyon, he did Wyatt Earp. Now, Wyatt Earp is, of course, the 3-hour production of the OK Corral and Doc Holliday and everything. And it came out right after Tombstone. And Tombstone is arguably the more successful version of that story. And as a result, Wyatt Earp bombed. It was one of the first real bombs of Kasdan's career up until that point. But then he bounced back with a romantic comedy with Meg Ryan called French Kiss, Kevin Kline and Meg Ryan, which I've only seen once. And here again, that's another film which I just had no interest in going back to, and he didn't write that at any rate. And then finally, he also did Mumford, which is a film that nobody remembers but me. I actually do remember seeing Mumford in the theaters. It stars Lauren Dean. And actually, wait a minute. I gotta. Well, the reason why I remember Mumford so much, and I don't care about spoilers, but evidently that was a film that apparently the Unsolved Mysteries crew decided to use in terms of the plot, where this guy Lauren Dean had been missing for years, and his story was showcased on Unsolved Mysteries, and he was discovered in this small town. I don't remember much else about the movie from that point, except for the fact that I just didn't laugh much, and I wasn't really touched by anything in the movie. I just found the Unsolved Mysteries thing a little interesting because I was a huge fan of that at the time. But if you want a better movie that uses unsolved mysteries in the plot line, just rent Basketball with Trey Parker and Matt Stone, which uses, in fact, it even uses Robert Stack to great advantage in that. Update. We still have no fucking clue where this guy is. Now, and then he did Dreamcatcher, and his last film was Darling Companion, which nobody saw. But anyway, let's talk about Richard Crenna here. Now, as most people are aware, Richard Crenna is best known as Colonel Troutman in the Rambo series. Christian Planet CHH is, of course, a massive fan of the Rambo series, as I am. You should check out his videos on the Rambo series and everything. But, the interesting thing about Richard Crenna's performance as Troutman is that, on paper, I can imagine other actors making those lines seem very, very hammy. I mean, when I first saw First Blood, and Richard Crenna started talking about John Rambo and training him and everything that he went through in Vietnam as a Green Beret and everything. I just, I started to think, with another actor, this could come off as laughable or hammy or anything. But man, Richard Crenna made you believe every word that he was saying, and that's a massive credit to him. I mean, considering the fact that they wanted actors like Lee Marvin and others before they finally gave it to Richard Crenna. But Richard Crenna was so damn good as Colonel Troutman in that first movie, in First Blood, that, I mean, he became, that's what he became best known for. A lot of people even forgot that he was in Body Heat the year before as Kathleen Turner's husband. But Richard Crenna is really very good here. And some of the other films, he actually started out in the early 1950s, believe it or not, and he had made movies like The Sand Pebbles in 1966 with Steve McQueen, and Wait Until Dark with Audrey Hepburn is actually one of his more famous early roles. He was also in Blake Edwards' Star with Julie Andrews. Marooned with Gregory Peck, The Man Called Noon, Breakfast Pass, Devil Dog, The Hound of Hell, The Evil, Stone Cold Dead. He also did a family film with Linda Blair called Wild Horse Hank. And then finally he did Body Heat and First Blood, basically back to back. And of course, after that, he later did The Flamingo Kid, and then he did Rambo First Blood Part 2 and Rambo 3. However, he also did Leviathan and also Hot Shots Part 2, where he does a hilarious parody of his own character Troutman from the Rambo movies. I did a commentary on the Hot Shots movies earlier in the year, which I'm particularly proud of, to be perfectly honest. And I mean, he even started out like his first thing was I Love Lucy in 1952. He was actually in the episode The Young Fans. So he had been around for a long, long time before Body Heat and First Blood. But I think these two films are his most famous roles. And, you know, Richard Crenna, I mean, he's only in Body Heat for maybe, what, 25 minutes. And he still brings so much. I mean, particularly in that dinner scene that we just saw. But I think it's time to bump off the husband. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, The Accidental Tourist is really good. And I Love Silverado and Kevin Kline. Yep, yep. Yeah, Kevin Kline is one of my favorite actors as well. And he's, you know, done a lot with Lawrence Kasdan, just like William Hurt has. But for no reason, we want him dead. Yeah. And that's the thing. William Hurt, when he first read this script, he thought, oh my God, this is a perfect script. It's a perfect script. And I agree with him. I actually absolutely agree with him. This is a perfect script of which, you know, like Leonard Maltin said in his book, you know, it's a little overly derivative of 1940s melodramas at first, but then it just goes off on its own path and scores. And man, it scores big time. Big time. Yeah, this is a great overhead shot of Kathleen Turner and William Hurt kissing. See their shadows on the wall there. Really breathtaking stuff. Really breathtaking. Would it be too controversial to say that I actually prefer this over Double Indemnity? Maybe. I mean, look, when it comes to film noirs, I mean, you can't do much better than Body Heat. I mean, just you can't. And of course, what's funny is this spawned all of those late night erotic thrillers that appeared on VHS in the 1980s. Oh God, there were so many of them. I mean, there were like, I think every release day there was at least one new one with a title and like a has-been movie star, you know, headlining it and everything. Shannon Tweed, you know, has a whole industry of these like erotic thrillers where, you know, there's so softcore sex scenes and usually there's a murder or blackmail or you know something else nefarious going on that, you know, they just recycled those movies to death. They really did. I mean, this was back this was back before the internet, where you actually had to fast forward to go to a certain point in a VHS tape to actually see somebody naked. I mean, that's what it was like back then. That's really what it was like. I mean, for all those kids that rented hard bodies, you know, when you just wait 10 years later and we have the internet where you can get like any pornographic thing you want and everything. Actually, okay, speaking of pornography, let me talk about this real quick because as most people know, Double Indemnity is based on a novel by James M. Cain. And James M. Cain, his very first book was The Postman Always Rings Twice, which was filmed very successfully in 1946 with, if I remember correctly, wasn't it? Lana Turner, yeah. Very famous 1946 film with Lana Turner based on the James M. Cain book. And that was actually remade in 1981 with Jack Nicholson and Jessica Lange, of all people. And that came out approximately 6 months before Body Heat in 1981. Now, I remember when I actually read The Postman Always Rings Twice. I mean, and it's basically about a drifter that comes to this diner in California. And of course, has the hots for the cook, and then they proceed to do the same thing, bump off the husband. Well, the 1946 version is a genuine classic, and it still remains as fiery as it was in 1946. Lana Turner is sensational in that. James Garfield. I mean, one of the great noirs next to The Big Sleep. Well, they remade that in 1981 with Jack Nicholson and Jessica Lange. And the thing is, I just remember it being more violent than erotic. It was really trying to establish this seedy, sensuous atmosphere. And really, all I remember is Jack Nicholson smacking Jessica Lange around, and they're like, I don't know, like what, fucking on the stoves in the kitchen or something. I don't know. I haven't seen that movie in years, and I'm honestly a little scared on revisiting it. Maybe I saw it too young, whatever. But Body Heat, I think, is 1,000 times better than what I remember from that remake of Postman Always Rings Twice. But the funny thing is that Postman made 4 times its budget. People wanted to see Jack Nicholson slap Jessica Lange around in that new movie, and Lana Turner infamously never saw it, but she just saw the advertisements for everything for the remake, and then said, "Oh no, this looks like just pornographic trash." So she never saw the remake, to be perfectly honest. And I don't blame her, but here again, I mean, maybe I should revisit the second movie to see if I like it on a second viewing. But speaking of somebody who's actually read the James M. Cain source material, I just don't think it will measure up at all. Just at all. But here we have Mickey Rourke in one of his very first films right here, which looks like he could easily play William Hurt's slimy little brother. And he tells him, he says he's an asshole, and yet says right after that, "Look, I really like you," and he says, "Oh no, don't smoke in here," and everything. Very, very early Mickey Rourke performance. In fact, this was pretty much right after one of his first films, which I have on Blu-ray, called Fade to Black, which is a great slasher film from 1980 starring Dennis Christopher, where he plays this guy obsessed with classic movies, like the gangster movies with James Cagney, and the horror films like Dracula and Frankenstein and everything. And so he dresses up as his favorite characters, and he starts murdering people left and right. He basically cosplays his favorite characters like Cagney and whatever, and like Richard Whitmark from White Heat and stuff like that. And he just starts killing people left and right when he falls in love with a Marilyn Monroe lookalike who stood him up at the movie theater and everything. Well, Mickey Rourke played somebody that bullied him, and like they have this little bet going on throughout the movie about Casablanca. Like, I bet you don't know. I forget what the actual question was, but like it had to do with like his name or whatever. But of course, Rourke ultimately did not know, and then he eventually got shot to death by Dennis Christopher when he was dressed up as Hopalong Cassidy. This is where William Hurt goes to rent the car from the Ajax Car Company, and there's this very surreal moment with a clown driving by and looking at him. Look, can somebody explain to me what the clown represents, if anything? Probably nothing, but yeah, it's just creepy. I just saw a clown drive next to me. And like I said, there was a lot more explicit footage that was shot with William Hurt and Kathleen Turner, but ended up being cut after the premiere, and it got chopped down to 113 minutes. I mean, it probably wasn't a lot of footage, to be perfectly honest. I mean, but they really did feel like less was more. And I absolutely agree with them. And there were some other deleted scenes on the Blu-ray and everything, like there was actually an attempted murder before the actual murder. And you get to see that on the Blu-ray for the first time. Yeah, dude. I mean, what are you going downstairs for? Leaving Kathleen Turner in bed like that. And what I was saying earlier about this movie having a sense of humor that not many people noticed, because when Lawrence Kasdan was looking for an editor for the movie, oh, this is great. She's like, "No, don't stop," and he says, "What do you do? Trying to kill me?" It's a perfect example of what this movie's sense of humor is, and it's wonderful. It's just wonderful. But Lawrence Kasdan wanted to find a woman to edit this picture because he wanted, he wanted somebody that would not make the movie seem, exploitative and like with that perverted male gaze or whatever. And so he hired a woman to edit the film, which happened to be Carol Littleton, who would end up editing Lawrence Kasdan's movies pretty much for the rest of his career. Just to give you an idea, she also edited E.T., The Extraterrestrial. She did that for Spielberg. And later, of course, she did The Big Chill for Lawrence Kasdan. But she also did Places in the Heart, Brighton Beach Memoirs, White Palace, Benny and June, China Moon, Diabolique, Twilight, but not that Twilight. Dreamcatcher, the Manchurian Candidate remake, Margot at the Wedding, The Other Boleyn Girl, The Rum Diary, and her last edited film was My Dinner with Hervé in 2018. So yeah, she ended up doing all of Lawrence Kasdan's movies after that, including this one. And she's actually married to cinematographer John Bailey, who has shot some of Lawrence Kasdan's movies as well. He shot A Continental Divide and The Big Chill, to be perfectly honest, as well as Silverado and Brighton Beach Memoirs, The Accidental Tourist again, Groundhog Day, In the Line of Fire. Yep. However, Body Heat was actually shot by Richard H. Klein, who Sean McManus mentioned earlier in the chat. And he's still with us. No, I'm sorry. He passed away in 2018, 91 years old. He had started out in the 1960s when he had shot Chamber of Horrors and Camelot, as well as The Boston Strangler, oddly enough. The Andromeda Strain, Koch, When the Legends Die, and the Mechanics, Soylent Green, Battle for the Planet of the Apes, which we'll do next year, along with Soylent Green, Mr. Majestic, Mandingo, Juan Tantan, the dog who saved Hollywood. He was nominated for an Academy Award for shooting King Kong. Oh, these are some luminous fog moments right here. Very luminous fog scenes. I hope he's got fog lights on. I'm serious. It's very dangerous to drive in the thick of fog like that. Oh, man. Richard H. Klein, he also shot The Fury, Star Trek The Motion Picture. He shot that for Robert Wise because he had worked on the Andromeda Strain. And he also shot The Competition with Richard Dreyfuss, Death Wish 2, All of Me, The Man with One Red Shoe, Double Impact, the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. And his last movie that he shot was Meet Wally Sparks. Oh, and he actually shot one of my favorite guilty pleasures of all time, Howard the Duck. And I'm sure there's also fans out there of My Stepmother is an Alien. Well, he also shot that one as well. I thought he had shot a Star Trek movie. I know I remember his name as shooting a Star Trek movie, but I forgot it was actually the motion picture. All right, let's do a timestamp here real quick. We are approximately 1 hour and 30 seconds. 1 hour and 30 seconds into Body Heat, and we have about 52 minutes to go. Yeah, William Hurt really thinks that he's pulling off the perfect crime right here. He really thinks he's pulling off the perfect crime. Yeah. Anybody out there in the chat, thank you again for coming. Anything you want to say on Body Heat, please let me know. Go ahead and type it, and I'll be sure to share it and everything. Oh, got a cop car driving by here. Yep. The New York Times in 2005 wrote that, propelled by Kathleen Turner's jaw-dropping movie debut, she built a career on adventurousness and frank sexuality born of robust physicality. Yes, absolutely indeed. Now, like for anybody that was in 1981 watching Body Heat, they were all probably asking the same thing: is where the hell did this woman come from? Okay, well, the truth of the matter is, she was born in Springfield, Missouri, and she was raised in a strict conservative Christian household. And her interest in performing was discouraged by both of her parents. My father was a missionary stock, she said. So theater and acting were just one step up from being a streetwalker, you know? So when I was performing in school, he would drive my mom there and sit in the car, and she'd come out at intermissions and tell him she's doing very well. Now, it should be noted that earlier I had mentioned that my father had actually kept Body Heat under lock and key so that I would never get my dirty little paws on it and watch it behind his back. Well, there was another movie he kept under lock and key, which also just happens to have Kathleen Turner. And it's directed by Ken Russell, who directed William Hurt's first movie, Altered States, which also served as Drew Barrymore's first movie, by the way. Well, not many people remember Crimes of Passion, okay? But let's put it this way. When this movie came out in 1984, it caused quite a stir because it showed Kathleen Turner in a lot of rather violent sexual acts. From Ken Russell, the director, quote, "You can be as violent as you want in the country, but you talk about sex and everyone reaches for their chastity belts. This picture is about sex and frankness." Set in the midst of a steamy red light district, this compelling drama focuses on China Blue, a stunningly beautiful prostitute, keenly adept at playing erotic power games. Crime of Passion is directed by the visionary Ken Russell, the mastermind that brought, that brought audience to such powerful films as Altered States, Women of Love, Tommy, The Devils, and Kathleen Turner of Body Heat and Romance in the Stone. Once again delivers a powerful, sensual, and highly erotic performance as the enigmatic China Blue opposite Anthony Perkins, most famous for Norman Bates in Psycho. The sinister street corner preacher Shane, whose obsession centers her in his character's violent sexual fantasies. Compelling musical score by Rick Wakerman. Yeah, this was released by New World Pictures, and this is actually a something I picked up at a horror film festival, which this is not much more than a bootleg of the VHS version that New World put out in the mid-1980s. But yeah, this was a big deal when it came out because everybody was talking about Kathleen Turner doing all these scenes on screen. Yeah, the steamiest video cassette of the year. Yeah, the steamiest video cassette of the year. That's quite a proclamation. But if you have Kathleen Turner as your star, I could absolutely buy that. But that was the other film that my father kept under lock and key when it came to his obsession with Kathleen Turner. But the truth of the matter is that Kathleen Turner had moved to New York City in 1977, about 4 years before Body Heat. And she took over the female lead in Michael Zetter's play Mr. T, which co-starred Jonathan Frakes, later known as number one on Star Trek The Next Generation, and played at the Soho Repertory Theater. That production marked her off-Broadway debut. Several months later, she made her Broadway debut as Judith Hastings in Gemini by Albert Inarritu, staged at the Little Theater, now known as the Helen Hayes Theater, starring Danny Aiello. It opened May 21st, 1977, during the time when she was appearing in the soap The Doctors. So Kathleen Turner had actually starred on a few soaps as well. In 2008, Kathleen Turner said, "Body Heat was a blessing because I went straight to being a leading actor, and I didn't have to suffer any of this predatory male behavior like many young actresses. It doesn't frustrate me that nearly 4 decades after film, I'm still referred to as a sexual icon. I got over that a long time ago." With her deep voice, Turner was often compared to a young Lauren Bacall. And when the two met, Turner reportedly introduced herself by saying, "Hi, I'm the young you," when she met Lauren Bacall. That's pretty amazing. Lauren Bacall was actually starring in a movie in the same year called The Fan. Not the Robert De Niro, Wesley Snipes The Fan. No, we mean The Fan that had the guy from the Terminator in it who stalked her and everything. Michael Biehn, yeah. It was a film that came out in May of 1981 by Paramount Pictures, where Lauren Bacall was basically a famous stage and film actress, and she's stalked by a violent, deranged fan played by Michael Biehn, who starts killing everybody around her. I've heard nothing but bad things about it, but to be perfectly honest, there is a Shout Factory Blu-ray of it, a Scream Factory Blu-ray of it with a lot of bonus material. A lot of bonus material on it, which I'm sure would be more than worth diving into. Now, before I continue on Kathleen Turner, I should note that this Blu-ray for Body Heat came out in 2007. You can all get it at a reasonable price, and it has a 43-minute making of documentary, which includes the plan, production, and post-production of the film, and it includes interviews with William Hurt, Kathleen Turner, Lawrence Kasdan, editor Carol Littleton, Ted Danson, pretty much everybody but Mickey Rourke comes out and talks about Body Heat. Pretty much everybody but Mickey Rourke. And there's also vintage interviews from 1981 with Kathleen Turner and William Hurt, as well as 5 deleted scenes. No audio commentary. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to do an audio commentary for this, because, well, there's no commentary. But then again, I'm doing all the Lad Company movies. So next weekend, I'm going to be doing Blade Runner. I haven't decided what day it's going to be, but yeah, I will be doing Blade Runner next weekend. And then the weekend after that, I'm going to be doing my favorite favorite comedy of all time, which is also a Lad Company movie called Night Shift, which has the explosive debut of Michael Keaton. Catch that in a couple weeks. I'm going to be making an announcement very soon about Night Shift, but I will be definitely doing a commentary on this in just a couple more weeks. Look at Ted Danson, just like looking away, like he knows what's up. He knows what's going on between the two of them. Kathleen Turner, of course, misses him so badly after after she's already made more than a few fuck ups here. Oh yes, Maddie, you've really, really done it. But how can you object if she begs you to come to the house that night? How can you object? Come on, come on, you know. Yeah, Ted's like, yeah, I know what's going on here. We'll be having a few words exchanged later. uh, do another timestamp here, real quick. We are 1 hour and 11 minutes. We are 1 hour and 11 minutes into Body Heat. William Hurt's going to go back to his house here where Ted Danson and J.A. Preston will be waiting for him. And we already talked about J.A. Preston and mentioned everything that he did. However, we haven't talked a lot about Ted Danson yet. Like I said, I discovered this movie, I mean, I think, before I even saw an episode of Cheers. And I have to say, as much as I like the title song of Cheers, I've never really gotten into the show. It's not that I dislike the show. I just never really got into it. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just not the type of person to want to hang out at bars. And then again, I don't want to watch a show that's about people hanging out in a bar. But I do love the title song. I will say that. I do love the title song. But Ted Danson was born in San Diego. And he was the son of an archaeologist and director of the Museum of Northern Arizona. And he also has he was raised in Flagstaff, Arizona, actually. His ancestry is mostly English and also partially Scottish. And he traces his ancestry back to colonial New England, being descended from Roger Williams, Anne Hutchinson, John Webster, and Roger Ludlow. In 1961, Danson enrolled into the Kent School, a prep school in Connecticut, where he was the star player on the basketball team. Foregoing a career in the NBA, he became interested in drama while attending Stanford University and seeking a better acting program, transferred to Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, where he received his Bachelor of Fine Arts in Drama in 1972. And he began his television career as a contract player on the daytime soap opera Somerset. Yeah, a lot of soap opera veterans in this movie, I must admit. And he also played the role of Tom Conway from 1975 to 1976. In 77, he played Dr. Mitchell Peterson on the daytime soap opera The Doctors, having also appeared earlier in 1975 as another character, Dr. Chuck Weldon. He was also in a number of commercials, most recognizably as the quote, the Aramis Man. Yeah, okay, so for Estee Lauder, he did commercials for Estee Lauder. Okay. And of course, most people know him as, of course, local legend baseball player and bartender Sam Malone on the NBC sitcom Cheers. And here again, I never really got into Cheers. I love the title song, never really got into it. And I've only seen a few other things he's done. I mean, I remember when Gulliver's Travels came out, and I remember watching that. But he has appeared on Fargo. He has appeared on the show Fargo. In July of 2019, Danson was cast as one of the main lead roles for the situation comedy Mr. Mayor, in which he plays a wealthy businessman who runs for mayor of LA for the wrong reasons. The series was greenlit by NBC as an entry in the 2020-2021 television season. And it was just canceled after 2 seasons. So there you go. So no more Mr. Mayor with Ted Danson for all those that were interested in that show. And of course, infamously, he's also known as being married to Whoopi Goldberg for a number of years. And he only made one movie before Body Heat. In fact, Lawrence Kasdan even mentions seeing him in the movie called The Onion Field. The Onion Field is actually based on a true story. It's another neo-noir crime drama starring James Woods and Ronnie Cox and John Savage, and it's based on a true crime incident of some detectives that were kidnapped by these criminals, and they go to an onion field in Bakersfield where one of them is shot and killed, and the other one narrowly escapes as a cloud passes in front of the moon, plunging the onion field into complete darkness. Now, I have not seen the onion field. I've had that on my list for quite a while now because I did a podcast earlier in the year with Scott Weinberg where we came across the onion field in our discussion. And, I mentioned that I had seen a Siskel and Ebert review on it that kind of propelled me to check it out, but I still haven't done so yet. But I will definitely now check out the onion field, which it's directed by Harold Becker and stars John Savage, James Woods, Ted Danson, and Ronnie Cox. Now, after Body Heat, Ted Danson also did Creepshow, Little Treasure, Just Between Friends, A Fine Mess, Three Men and a Baby, which was actually the #1 box office hit of 1987. I don't think it's near as high regard as it was then. And then he did pretty shallow movies like Getting Even with Dad with Macaulay Culkin, and although he did play a captain in Saving Private Ryan. I completely forgot about that. And he was also in Mumford. Lawrence Kasdan also put him in Mumford in 1999. And like I said, up until 2022, he was actually doing that show, Mr. Mayor, but then that just got canceled. So that might be the time for Ted Danson to retire. He's 74 years old now. He's married to Mary Steenburgen, lucky bastard. In fact, it was actually in just the year before Body Heat that Mary Steenburgen won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for what is it? Howard and oh God, not. Why is the name escaping me right now? God, man. Melvin and Howard. Yeah, Melvin and Howard. Yeah. But actually, it was at this time that she was actually married to Malcolm McDowell after they met on Time After Time in 1979. And after they got divorced in the 90s, Ted Danson then married Mary Steenburgen, and they're still married to this day. But I like both him and J.A. Preston as the detectives here. Ted Danson knows exactly what's going on, and he's gonna basically be William Hurt's own lawyer in getting through all this. Driving to some mysterious meeting. Is that vague enough for you? Did you kill your husband? So we realize that there's actually an important piece of evidence, which was a pair of glasses that Richard Crenna was wearing when he got bumped off. Where are those glasses now? That's a very good question. And now they're talking about Walker's niece, who, of course, witnessed this little interaction that she had with some guy in the middle of the night. Bringing the little girl in today to tell her story. Yep. And William Hurt's face is like, oh no. time I saw Body Heat, I was thinking, oh no, they're not going to bring in a sketch artist, are they? They're not going to go that far, are they? Oh no. Uh, something that every little girl out there should never ever see. Just never ever see. Oh, this is so. So William Hurt, he's going to leave the office here and actually take a chance by meeting with the niece. He's going to take his chances here. Now, I think we covered pretty much everybody in the cast. This movie doesn't have a big cast, to be perfectly honest. I mean, but we were going to finish talking about Mickey Rourke, who we are going to have another scene with Mickey Rourke actually coming up here in just a few more minutes. See, we are at the hour and 21 minute 30-second mark. 1 hour, 21 minutes, 30 seconds. So we have approximately 32 minutes left to go in Body Heat. 2 iced teas for Fred Astaire. Now, you want to hear something wild? This part always made me crack up. I mean, even though it's horrible. No little girl should see that, okay? It's one of the. But here again, this movie has a sense of humor about it. Goes out on the porch. The guy's turned around with his pants or shorts dropped. And so he's mooning the little girl, right? And he and your friend are going at something. Can't. Sounds suspicious to me, like oral genital contact. Yeah. Oh, which I'm proud to say is no longer illegal in this state. Stand by on that. Who knows what the jury may be coming back in on even that very soon. Well, he looks about 7 or 8 inches long and very, very bald. Oh no, poor little Heather. Yeah, poor. She's never seen one angry before. Oh no. Oh no. And she said the guy had very greasy hair, slick back like a Cuban. Yeah. Of course, William Hurt's like listening to all this, like, oh, really? She had a nightmare. Can you imagine the kind of dream she had for the rest of the night? Yeah. Yeah. It's really weird. I don't really recognize Ted Danson in this role. When I think of Ted Danson, I think of Body Heat, but not because I recognize him physically, just because I know that he's in this movie. And so William Hurt confronts Kathleen Turner about where those glasses are. Yeah, where those all-important glasses are, which could, like I said, break the case for any police detective. uh, it's really weird because there was a scene earlier with Mickey Rourke where, of course, he's talking to him about arson and everything. And, he mentions about, not recognizing the mistakes in order to when you're carrying out a crime. And in the movie The Rainmaker, Matt Damon has a particular speech in his voiceover where, he talks about you make about 50 mistakes and you're lucky if you remember 5 of them or something along those lines. Well, Mickey Rourke is actually in The Rainmaker, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. And it's actually one of his best performances, I think, even though he's not in it a whole lot. Yeah, he has about as much screen time as he has in that movie as he has here in Body Heat, to be perfectly honest. I'd kill myself if I thought this thing would destroy us. Yeah, very, very indicative of those 1940s melodramas. But like I said, this one has that 1980s spice, that 1980s sensuality, which kind of dominated the video market for pretty much the the rest of the decade. It's insane. Jay Preston going ahead and doing an investigation here. And once again, that John Barry score, that John Barry score keeps us on our toes as we unravel, as we see everything unravel for William Hurt and Kathleen Turner here. Everything is unraveling very, very quickly. Yep. So we pretty much covered all the cast members and the major crew members, and of course Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote and directed Body Heat. Let's see here. Yeah, a couple other trivia bits I was going to include real quick. The picture was shot in actual freezing cold temperatures. The production had to simulate the heat wave of the film's story, the actors having to act in hot and cold conditions. For example, the thespians had to suck ice cubes before speaking to eliminate foggy breath and had water sprayed on their skin and skirts to simulate body sweat. Kim Zimmer's memoir disputes this. She remembers shooting in blazing heat, however. Okay. Kim Zimmer, of course, plays the childhood friend who was in the gazebo when William Hurt was walking up to it and asked, "Hey, lady, you want to fuck?" William Hurt and Kathleen Turner wanted the crew to feel comfortable filming their love scenes, so they lined up the crew and both actors introduced themselves to each crew member. When they did this, both stars were naked. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. The Maddie Walker character was modeled on film noir legend Lauren Bacall. Kathleen Turner was cast in the role due to her similarities to Bacall, including a distinctive husky voice and distinguishable long, shapely legs. Ted Danson's mother went to see the film and walked out due to the picture's provocative sexuality. According to the documentary on the film's DVD, she never told him this and pretended for many years that she had seen the movie, which she hadn't until it was revealed to him many years later. Christopher Reeve was offered the lead but turned it down after saying, quote, "I didn't think I would be convincing as a seedy lawyer." Yeah, Chris, I love you, man. I think you made the right call on that one. Well, I mean, can you buy Christopher Reeve as a seedy lawyer? I mean, in Somewhere in Time, that's the perfect role for him, a playwright. No, not in Body Heat. He wouldn't have been right in Body Heat, I don't think. When Kathleen Turner did her second reading for writer-director Lawrence Kasdan, he said it was the first time that someone had read the part of Maddie Walker that sounded exactly the way he had heard it in his head when he wrote the script. In an article in Photoplay magazine published in April 1982 in the UK, it stated that the screen test was, quote, "too good to ignore." And Kathleen coincided exactly with Lawrence Kasdan's idea of Maddie. Kathleen Turner's next film, The Man with Two Brains, was a spoof of the femme fatale character that she played here in Body Heat. Director Lawrence Kasdan wanted unknowns to star in the film, so there would be a sense of discovery as if they were real. Yes, indeed. Oh, here's a nice little confirmation. Lawyer Peter Lowenstein, played by Ted Danson, states that oral sex is not illegal in Florida. However, Florida Statute 800.02 made, quote, unnatural and lascivious acts, which included oral genital contact, a misdemeanor. In 2003, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down all sodomy laws. In May 2008, the film's two leads, William Hurt and Kathleen Turner, ranked at number 6 on MoviePhone's top 25 sexiest movie couples. That was 2008. So they were number 6 on a list of 25. That's pretty amazing. Very amazing. The dancing of lawyer Peter Lowenstein, played by Ted Danson, was choreographed based on dance movements of Hollywood musical legend Fred Astaire. That's why they mentioned Fred Astaire earlier. In New York, doing Anton Chekhov's The Seagull on stage, Kathleen Turner was turned down for an audition for the film because she had no film credits. She has since said, quote, "All I knew was that the role of Maddie Walker was the best part written for a woman in so many years. I tried to get an audition, but I had no film experience and was unable to get one. About 4 months later, Turner was in Los Angeles pursuing a part in another picture. When the part's still not cast, she was granted an audition. She said, they gave me a test with William Hurt. I'd never tested for a film before. It was pretty scary. Walking into a studio, having makeup men and everybody turn you into their idea of what Maddie should be." Yeah. And this was the first of 4 movies that William Hurt and Lawrence Kasdan made together. The others being The Big Chill, The Accidental Tourist, and I Love You to Death. And Hurt has commented on the DVD's documentary that his professional relationship with Kasdan has been the most rewarding one of his entire career. Writer-director Lawrence Kasdan said, quote, "He wanted Body Heat to have, quote, the intricate structure of a dream, the density of a good novel, and the texture of recognizable people in extraordinary circumstances." Now, I wanted to also do a couple more recommendations real quick. If you love William Hurt's work and are interested in checking out some of his other performances in light of the fact that he passed away earlier in the year, if you ask me, his best performance on screen is in the 1991 film The Doctor, directed by Rhonda Haines and written by Robert Caswell, based on a book called, by Ed Rosenbaum, about a doctor who realizes he has cancer. And the name of the book is A Taste of My Own Medicine. And William Hurt is wonderful in that movie. Now, here's Mickey Rourke again for his second scene in the movie. Now, as most people know, that Mickey Rourke has a professional boxing record, and so he's very active in the sports and everything. He actually made his film debut in 1941, the Steven Spielberg movie 1941, when he played Private Reese. And then he was in Heaven's Gate, the infamous picture that ruined United Artists, directed by Michael Cimino, and yet it is still worth watching. And then, of course, he did Fade to Black, where he played the character of Richie, who bullies the lead, played by Dennis Christopher, the star of Breaking Away. Now, after Body Heat, Mickey Rourke's career took off from that point because he was cast in Diner, with Kevin Bacon and Steve Guttenberg, and a very large ensemble that became one of the biggest hits of '82. He was also in The Pope of Greenwich Village, Year of the Dragon, 9.5 Weeks, Angel Heart, one of his best films with Robert De Niro, Barfly, Francisco, Johnny Handsome, Wild Orchid, Desperate Hours, which is a remake of an old 50s movie, Buffalo 66, Animal Factory, The Pledge, directed by Sean Penn and starring Jack Nicholson. And, of course, he was in Wrestler, which I do think he should have won the Academy Award for, but Sean Penn ended up getting the award instead. who had just directed him in The Pledge of all people. But he won for was it Milk? I think it was. I think that's what Sean Penn won for that year. And Mickey Rourke is still acting away. I mean, he's still making a lot of movies, not high profile ones, but he's definitely still in the business, and he's definitely still churning films out. He's only 69 now. Yeah. But yeah, he has one of his most memorable early performances right here in Body Heat. In the boathouse, the top drawer of the dresser. Yeah. I just wanted to make a few more recommendations of some other noirs that I own. I fell in love with Kathy O'Donnell, who plays the girl next door in The Best Years of Our Lives. And she did a couple of film noirs, which I highly recommend. They Live by Night with Farley Granger and Howard Silva, and Side Street, which also had Farley Granger and Kathy O'Donnell. Those are some really good noirs right there. The Window is one of my absolute favorites, which has Bobby Driscoll witness a murder in his New York tenement. And this one is interesting because it shows many scenes of him in peril, many hair-raising scenes in peril. And he actually died in a New York tenement when he was 28 years old and buried without identification. In fact, his mother had to contact the Disney studio when he played. He was in. He gave the voice of Peter Pan, and he was also in Treasure Island and Song of the South, the infamous Song of the South. And here again, another great noir based on the guy that wrote based on a story by the same author as Rear Window. So The Window is really great as well. And I also have Dark Passage, another great Bogart and Bacall movie where he plays a prisoner who just escaped from San Quentin in San Francisco. And he basically has plastic surgery. And for the first half of the movie, we only see what he is seeing. We don't see his face, and we don't see him when he's bandaged up for about half of the movie. So Humphrey Bogart doesn't show up until like 40, 50 minutes in, but still great noir of the period. So those are some of the noirs that I have in my collection that I wanted to share during this commentary. Okay, we are officially 1 hour and 38 minutes. 1 hour and 38 minutes into Body Heat. We got approximately 15 minutes left to go as we wind things down here and as the final twist is coming. Hope everyone has had a wonderful evening. Here again, we got 15 minutes left. Please let me know in the chat anything else about Body Heat that you'd like me to share, and I'll be more than happy to share it. Just a few other trivia notes here real quick. Yeah, Kathleen Turner's debut here has been compared to Lauren Bacall's debut into Have and Have Not, which is another film that she did it with Humphrey Bogart in the 1940s. Oh, this is interesting. The film was largely influenced by Double Indemnity, of course. Richard Crenna, who plays Kathleen Turner's husband, actually appeared in a television remake of Double Indemnity as Walter Neff, the man lured into murdering his lover's husband. In this film, he plays the doomed husband. Oh, interesting. Yeah, this is a television version of Double Indemnity done back in 1973 with Richard Crenna, Lee J. Cobb, and Robert Webber. Oh, very, very interesting. Very interesting. Jeff Goldblum was considered for the role of Peter Lowenstein, and he later worked with Lawrence Kasdan on The Big Chill and Silverado. So can you imagine Jeff Goldblum in the Ted Danson role? There you go. uh, in the deluxe edition DVD extras of Body Heat, which those featurettes are actually on the Blu-ray as well. No commentary, like I said. But Ted Danson tells a story about how just before shooting, William Hurt came up to him and asked, "Do you trust me?" And then proceeded to grab Danson by the balls. And he asked him again, "Do you trust me?" In 2008, the National Enquirer reported how Hurt apparently recounted and demonstrated the same story on a customer while at a tavern in New York City. So, yeah. Wow. The film's composer, John Barry, has described the main theme as being a jazz ballad plus a piano figure with strident chords and strings. Mimi Rogers and Angel Tompkins tried out for the role of Maddie Walker, which in the end was cast with Kathleen Turner. Of director Lawrence Kasdan's first two films he directed, both had oppositional temperature related titles: Body Heat, and then The Big Chill. Yeah. When classified by the Australian Centre for Theatres and Videotape during the early 1980s, the picture garnered an M rating both times, suitable for persons 15 years and older. Years later, when classified for DVD in that country in the late 1990s and 2000s, the film garnered the higher MA 15 plus rating both times, which restricts audiences to 15 years and older. After a period of 30 years, it is more likely for a film to be reclassified with a lower age restrictive rating, but in this instance, Down Under, as with The Silence of the Lambs, the picture achieved the feat of getting a higher age restrictive classification rating. Must have been too steamy for the later censors, I guess. Too steamy for them. The first of three historically significant but unrelated adult thriller movies in an unofficial Hollywood trilogy of erotic suspensors, each with a two-word title made within 6 years of each other, with the others being Fatal Attraction and Basic Instinct. But if you ask me, Fatal Attraction and Basic Instinct, both of those movies combined still don't top Body Heat. Not even close. Not even close. Oh, Sylvia Christel auditioned for the role of Maddie, but turned it down. Well, Sylvia Christel decided to do Private Lessons instead, where she plays a French maid that seduces a 15-year-old boy. So I don't know why she turned Body Heat down, but she obviously wanted to do the movie about pedophilia instead. And of course, William Hurt, it snaps to him that, oh my God, I think she's still alive. Okay, but they found the body in the boathouse. Was it somebody else's body? The film's screenplay originally contained a failed first murder attempt. The sequence was actually shot but cut out because it slowed down the movie's pace. However, footage from this botched attack was merged with film material from the successful kill to form the one successful job on the husband in the movie. If one looks closely, one can see the design on the bed sheets is different. Footage from the first crack used tighter shots so that this would not be noticed. It is not directly stated whether Maddie is at the end, but given that she is on a tropical beach and the man that joins her speaks Portuguese, it's safe to assume she's in Brazil. I should have waited a few more minutes for that because we still have the revelation here of William Hurt getting the yearbook and everything and discovering that it actually wasn't Maddie Walker's body in that fire, but in fact, Mary Ann Simpson's. Yeah. Great, great twist and a great, great neo-noir movie. I can't say for sure if audiences in 1981 saw all this coming, but I would imagine that after, by the time it came to William Hurt's realization that she probably wasn't dead, that they were probably like, yeah, I'm not buying it either. uh, The text of the letter that Ned received when the yearbook is read. Mr. Ned Racine, Florida State Penitentiary in Tallahassee, Florida. Dear Mr. Racine, here is the Wheaton cougar you asked to see. We were very intrigued by your most unusual request. Many former graduates have requested a look at our old yearbooks, but yours was our first correspondence from a state penitentiary. We hope that you will respect our desire to have the book returned at the soonest possible time. Good luck in your rehabilitation. I hope this satisfies your curiosity about your departed cousin. Very truly yours, David Morris, Assistant Principal, Wheaton High School. The real name of Maddie Walker, Kathleen Turner, was Mary Ann Simpson. Moreover, the real name of Mary Ann Simpson, is played by Kim Zimmer, was Maddie Walker. So despite this, the characters the two actresses are billed for are their own, albeit false names, that the viewer has been familiar with throughout the film and not their true identities. Mm-hmm. And yeah, here we're going to get the yearbook right now. It's just being delivered to William Hurt right here. See, that's the letter I just read earlier because it tends to go by a bit too quickly. I mean, we got to get to the point of the matter, which is William Hurt's theory is correct that it was actually her old high school friend that ended up in the fire, not her herself. Maddie Tyler, smoocher, ambition to graduate. There you go. That's Kim Zimmer. According to the Wheaton Cougars' 1968 high school yearbook, the nickname of Kathleen Turner's character, published under a real name of Mary Ann Simpson, was the Vamp, and the nickname of Kim Zimmer's Mary Ann Simpson was Smoocher. In the same publication, Zimmer's ambition was to graduate, while Turner's ambition was to be rich and live in an exotic land. Yes. I love that final bit where we find out her nickname used to be the Vamp, because it makes me think of like Tita Berra in the silent era, who was actually known as America's Vamp, because she played a woman who wasn't a vampire, but she basically drained the life out of men. You know, she would seduce uh, rich men and leave them drained of all their life and their wealth and their health and everything. That's what the vamps did back then. 1915, a very famous movie came out in January called A Fool There Was, with Tita Barra, where she basically seduces and corrupts a Wall Street guy who has a family and everything. And that movie became one of the biggest hits around the country even before The Birth of a Nation came out. Very, very famous film that everybody needs to see. And what this final shot suggests is that she's on Sugar Beach in St. Lucia, as evidenced by one of the grand pitons in the distance. As John Barry closes the movie with his famous score, and we follow Lawrence's camera up to the sky here, realize that Kathleen Turner had gotten away with it, and William Hurt will spend the rest of his life in prison. So that is the wonderful Body Heat, written and directed by Lawrence Kasdan and starring William Hurt and Kathleen Turner. Meg Kasdan, who I think later married Lawrence, plays a nurse. Yep. Great movie and a classic of the genre. Like I said, if you still haven't seen Body Heat, this is definitely one of the great classic films of the genre. And just to let everybody know, next week we will be doing a pair of commentaries that I'm sure you will all be interested in. Okay, we're going to do Blade Runner. We're going to do the final cut of Blade Runner with Harrison Ford, which the Ladd Company put out in July of 1982, as well as Night Shift with Henry Winkler, Michael Keaton, and Shelley Long, which also came out in July of 1982. So those were the first two Ladd Company releases of that year. Yeah. So yeah, looking forward to doing those, Blade Runner and Night Shift. Those will be coming in the next couple weeks. That's about it. I mean, thank you so much for everybody coming out tonight. Producers wish to thank the state of Florida and the city of Lake Worth for their cooperation in this production. A Ladd Company release through Warner Brothers, a Warner Communications company. All right. Thank you very much for joining.